Okay, warming up.
Oof. Share link.
Super busy day today.
Mm-mm.
But then again, it's a Monday. So I guess that means all the busy days for Monday. It's expected busy day.
There is that.
Okay, YouTube is running. And Facebook is running. And quick glance on both. No familiar people yet. Resharing links and hopes others will join us.
The usual.
So what can we say about today? Today has been quite a warm day.
A humid day, I guess more.
Yeah. One of those days where you just feel sticky all day.
Mm-hmm.
You feel tempted that you should try to shower multiple times.
Yeah, it's a Monday, so we talk about board games, well, tabletop games on Monday, and today's a classic. I keep saying it in all my captions for this, but it is by now. It's like
Mhm.
I'm more surprised when people haven't played Love Letter at this point, or at least tried it once. Hey, Urim. But yeah, it's a delightful little game. Sometimes I'm tempted to look for the original.
Yeah, that actually still remains a deep secret goal.
Mm-mm.
But I guess if we're gonna start talking about that, we might as well officially start the episode.
Okay.
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. Our episode is for one of the games which I think I can actually say, despite all the experiences we've had with all these other games, as complicated and as simple as they can be, this game still shines.
Yeah, I feel like Love Letter. Well, obviously it's the game we're talking about. When we first got a copy of Love Letter, it was such a revelation.
Mhm.
It was such a change in mindset of what a good tabletop game could be
Mm-hmm.
with so little, with in such a tiny little package, and so we have multiple versions of it. There are way more versions than this, and I don't know if we'll be able to find them all because they're
Mhm.
not expansions. There are 12 re-implementations of Love
Yes.
Letter on Board Game Geek, so that says something. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Love Letter, which is a card game originally developed by one Seiji Kanai. And
Mhm.
Seiji Kanai is like one of those prolific game designers that you may have never realized is out
Mhm.
there. Mainly because one is like he's Japanese, and so they have a whole different. I feel like they have a whole different philosophy towards board
Mhm.
games in Japan, and it's a lot of card games. It's
So,
definitely a lot of card games.
Board Game Geek lists Seiji Kanai of Kanai Factory, so some wonder if he's the only designer.
Yeah, he looks
Having around 60 plus games under his belt. Among the games he has that we've encountered, other than Love Letter, include Cheaty Mages,
Chronicle.
Chronicle, Deca Slayers, a game I'm hoping to get, but because of the pandemic, I'm holding back because it's minimum 3 players.
Oh, one of
um,
those.
Yeah. And then you have The Last Brave, which I'm hoping to find, which I think was also translated to Brave Rats, but I don't know if it's easy to
What are
find.
these strange animals?
Lost Legacy, I nearly purchased because someone was selling secondhand the entire collection for a set amount.
Oh
And I
wow!
held back only because,
Oh,
um,
and what's this? 8 epics. Look at that. It's like a whole
yeah.
set of things.
And then there's, of course, what is its name? Say Bye.
Oh, say bye to the villains.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Which is fiendishly difficult, but so delightful in theme.
Hmm.
You know, that I mean, I like the concept of the game more than I like playing it because it's hard.
And then
It's
I
a
guess
hard
the
game.
biggest game he has would be Unicornus Knights, which is his big. I dare call it his Mage Knight type of game.
Oh, okay.
So-
Which is a little surprising because yeah, because mostly he has all these little small games.
So yeah, Seiji Kanai is one of those
Image.
designers whom a number of us in the local gaming industry really admire. Many of us fanboy over his works, and we just try to hold back because, as mentioned, part of the conflict is wanting to own his games close to its purest form. So, Love Letter, for example, which most know, has this gorgeous artwork. It's part of
Yeah, most probably know this edition.
it's part of the Tempest universe, as they call it.
That was weird.
But this very nice realistic art for us is still second to the original art, which is this blocky,
Yeah.
almost woodcut looking art style.
When you grab
Say bye. Yeah, it's behind the judges, so it's a bit hard to get. There you go.
oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so it has this nice woodblock cut art style, which here to just show an example.
Where's not like where's Chronicle? It's somewhere in there.
Yeah, the Chronicles near the water dispenser, so it's harder
Yeah.
to get out. So yeah, as you can see here, it has that nice thick outline of artwork with very blocky style. And admittedly, this has a charm that I really like, and makes me wish I could find more of the original.
And it really, I mean, then it really reminds you that hey, it is a Japanese game designer.
Mhm.
But then yeah, when Zeman Games acquired sort of the rights to the international release for Love Letter,
Mhm.
then we got this version. And the whole Tempest universe thing was their weird attempt to add a shared story layer across a number of games by different designers, and just to make them into one universe. So there's Love Letter, and other games like Canales and Dominar, and I forgot what the others were. But it was a thing that they were trying to do. But it was just thematic. Like there was no, like these were not games that interconnected
Yeah.
together in gameplay or something. It's just a shared
There
universe.
was no carrying over of anything. Like if you played
Yeah.
one game, it's not like the winner gets to carry something to the other game. But that would have been an interesting thing if they thought of rules for that.
But the most they did was like there's a little story snippet at the beginning of the rule booklet of the Zeman edition, and then it would be like somehow connected to stories from the rest of Tempest. There's another snippet of story if you like. We have a copy of Dominar, and Dominar uses a lot of the same
Characters.
art but
Yeah.
then it has way more characters in that game. But it does like notably have the prince and the king as figures there.
It identifies the different social classes and the like. So going back, what is Love Letter? As we mentioned in one of our episodes, I think it was the Gateway Games.
I think it was the Gateway Games one.
Love Letter is basically a card. It's a game with the fewest cards you'd expect for a game of this caliber.
Of this depth.
It uses player elimination, social deduction, as well as you could say the smallest and most tight hand management type of game.
All right, because you at most have 2 cards.
Wherein you try to be the player who is closest to the princess. And this is defined by having a card with a higher number, the princess having the highest number. or actually hold the princess card at the end of the game.
So cards range from 1 to 8,
Mhm.
and then I guess you could. This is technically a trick-taking game in essence. But it's not listed as the mechanic. But because when you win the round, you win the trick. But it's like playing the crew recently.
Yeah.
It's still
Although trick taking tends to talk about you play something and everyone has to play that.
that's true.
So
That's
like
true.
MS Hearts and all that. So
I love it that this is Toby's first example every time because everybody's played MS Hearts.
and not just Hearts.
MS Hearts, because you weren't totally just playing solitary free cell. You took the time to learn MS Hearts. Okay, so yes,
Which is different from Minesweeper.
obviously. All right. So in Love Letter, the deck it looks thicker because we got the nice sleeves for this
Mhm.
one because why not, right? But the core game of Love Letter consists only of 16 cards.
Mhm.
16 cards, and they are a value ranging 1 to 8. Your basic player turn is that everybody is holding a card.
Mhm.
They will draw on your turn. You draw a card. You decide which one to retain and which one to discard.
Yes.
The one you discard, you trigger the card ability written on the bottom. The one you keep, you will note the number so that if you get to the end of the round, when everybody compares values, that's the value you're going to compare and hope that you are the highest.
There are different
That's
roles.
the basics.
There are different roles for every card, with the lowest cards being the guards, whose basic ability is to choose one of the players and to try to guess the card they're holding.
Except guard. So you can try to guess any card value from 2 to 8. You can't guess guard.
So, for example, if I was holding this card and Rocky was the guard, he might ask,
Are you the handmaiden?
and I would look at my card and I'd say, no. That part of the game, of course, weird some people out because why will you admit if you have it? And that always for us goes back to, if you're going to cheat, why are you playing the game?
Wait. I will always want to read. It is literally in the manual. There is a whole section on honesty.
Mhm.
And it's like a player could cheat when chosen with the guard or fail to discard the countess when the player has the king or prince in hand. We suggest you don't play with knaves who cheat at fun, light games. And this has been a primary gaming philosophy
Mhm.
for us. If we have people who don't get the joy of gaming in that regard and think that cheating or dishonesty
Or think that winning's the only thing that matters.
yeah, then you're not that fun to play with. We move on. But anyway,
The next role is the priest, who allows you to look at another player's hand, which will spell their doom. Because you now know what they are, and if you happen to have a guard on the next turn, you can call them out. But of course, since they tend to have a turn before you, then there's still a chance they get to switch what card they have with
discard
another.
the card.
So it still has that nice level of tension. Then you have the barons that have you compare cards with the other player.
him with his
Whoever
rose.
has the lower number is out. Handmaidens are basically protection. If you play a handmaiden, until your next turn, any cards that are played cannot affect you.
Now, given the main scenario of the game is that we are all suitors trying to get our love
Mhm.
letter to the princess, we always imagine this as you're like at a big party and then she's literally like, no, mistress is busy. No, cannot. So annoying handmaiden. All
The
right.
prince is card number 5 and
He's in Dominare.
forces one of the players to discard their hand. This is a very dangerous power. It can ruin someone's plans, and worse, if that person holds the princess, can spell their doom, as you will see later.
People forget that the prince can also allow you to discard your own hand, which is interesting. But yes, if you, especially like if someone used the priest on you, and then, like you want to yoink yourself away, discard yourself, you have a totally reset hand.
Then you have the king, which has you trade hands with someone else. A devastating move if you figured out who has what, but a dangerous move because it gives now someone knowledge of your card. Then we have the Countess, our
Bernadette
favorite.
Peters. It is. Look, it's Bernadette Peters.
Crush.
Ah.
um, The Countess is one of the cards that triggers even before you place a card down. Because the Countess is not willing to ever be beside the king or the
Which
prince.
is weird.
So if ever one of the other cards in your hand is the king or the prince,
And you draw the Countess.
must discard the Countess. Whether or not the Countess is the card that you newly drew or
Or
was
was
the
in your
card
hand.
you were holding at that time. Which then allows you to send misinformation if you willingly choose to discard the Countess, which is the second highest card in the entire
It's a
game.
7. Again, going back to the party scenario, we always imagine this as, again, busy party, la la, hobnobbing, and then a slap is heard from across the courtyard, and you see the Countess huffing out of the ballroom, and whether it's the prince or the king holding his cheek, and like,
Mhm. Finally, you have the princess.
oops, I was ready
The
for that.
princess is the highest rated card in the game, but it's the biggest burden.
She's so heavy. Because
Because
if you discard her, you lose the round. So if the prince forces you to discard, you lose the round. If someone with a guard guesses you're the princess, you lose the round. There are many ways. It's like the princess is a problem, ladies and gentlemen.
so that's something that we probably haven't explained because Love Letter is played as a series of rounds.
Mm.
Unlike other games wherein at the end of the game there's someone who wins and it's over. Love Letter is about winning multiple rounds because depending on the number of players, the number of victories you have can determine who wins in the overall game.
A two-player game, for example, requires you win 7 rounds or 7 tokens, whereas the maximum player count, a 4-player game, only 4 tokens.
Mhm. Now, this means while the game does have player elimination, rounds happen and end so quickly that you don't feel like you're forced to wait. You're forced to waste time waiting for the next round. It also has this added joy and satisfaction of kicking someone out.
The original game uses these very generic wooden cubes to mark favors that you win. You may recognize this cube style from Dominaria.
But
And
the premium edition replaces it with a much more fancy heart.
It's so cheesy. It's a heart.
So it's like large, bulky heart tokens. Because, as defined, every round of Love Letter that you win was you getting your letter to the princess to tell her how much you love her.
Now, the game includes, everybody has a clean player guide, which doesn't just list the powers of the 8 different cards,
Mhm.
but the quantities of the cards. So, in theory, you should have a decent idea of what cards are in play. To make sure there's a degree of randomness, at least one card from the top of the deck is set aside every round so that there's a mystery card that nobody knows. It's sort of like the monkey in Monkey Monkey or Old Maid. And in addition, all played cards or all discarded cards are considered public information. So traditionally, what we do when we play is that you each have your own discard pile and you lay out the cards as you discard them. And why do you need your own discard pile? Because it's the tie break mechanic. If at the end of the round, the remaining players have the same value of card, you will then look at your discarded cards. And I think the person who's discarded more cards
Mhm.
wins or higher. I'll double check. Anyway,
Now, the game has been re-implemented in so many ways. In most of it, the game has simply been reskinned. For example, Batman Love Letter has you, playing with the different characters from the franchise, with the number one card being Batman himself. The goal being to have captured the number one card being Batman and the number 8 card being the Joker, and the goal being to have captured the highest level of villains.
it's interesting. We never bought one though.
Infinity Gauntlet Love Letter, however, changes the rules somewhat, with one player playing Thanos and the other players deploying heroes in their attempts to stop Thanos from winning.
Oh wow, I haven't looked into this.
The Star Wars love letter has you play something closer to the normal game, but it has 17 cards instead of 16. And the theme being who rescues Princess Leia in the end.
Oh, cute.
So it's all these little variations, and there's surprisingly all these other franchises that have connected to it. There's Adventure Time, which we own. There's an Archer love letter. There's a Lovecraftian love letter as well.
Oh, Cthulhu.
There's even love letter.
Lovecraft letter.
Yeah, there's even love letter, The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies. So it's quite surprising how far this game has gotten. It even has a wedding edition, which from what I recall, people could have ordered in order to have as giveaways when they get married.
And it was like a white edition, which I have not seen a physical, and not seen in person, but we've seen photos on.
And I think there was like some level of personalization.
Yeah. So just for example, and just for comparison, Adventure Time Love Letter has very different art. So the guards are banana guards, and this one they made pair because there's most cards there are two of each, so they're pair. So the royal subject is either Lemongrab or Peppermint Butler. The gossip, which is the Baron, is Marceline or LSP. The handmaid is strange because it's Gunther. And I think I dropped the other one. No, it's Bernadette. Yeah. I mean, I love this edition because the art is adorable because they made it thematic to Love Letter, and yet it fits this other universe well. The princes here are Finn and Jake. And they add the special rule that if you use Finn to discard Jake, whether it's with another player or with you, then you win the game because they run off because they're best friends and they just have an adventure together instead of playing this game, which is a little bonkers, but totally in theme with the way Love Letter is. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, I'm suddenly concerned. Where's the other four? Okay. Then the wizard is the king, and I totally messed this up. Lady is the countess, which is, I guess, makes sense because if you catch her with Finn and Jake or Ice King, then it's weird. Then of course, Princess Bubblegum is the princess. I am missing a handmaid. Really? Yeah, weird. Very weird.
Hopefully they just stuck together.
Okay, anyway.
Or in the menu.
Yeah, I'm like checking, but no, the manual is soft.
Uh-oh. That's bad.
Uh-oh.
Now I'm suspect of everyone who has played with us.
Or we probably set it as it's that card you set aside and then maybe it got misplaced. I don't know. Okay. Always bothersome when you find missing components in your games. Yeah, there's nothing else in the box. Oh, there's a card. It also fell with the banana guard. Yeah, it's BMO.
Tried to go on an adventure. BMO always on his adventures.
All right. So the Adventure Time Love Letter did not add anything special except the tokens are these crystals, which you may recognize the shape from like Caverna for ore and rubies. It's that card. Not bad at all. But it's great for the art. And then and because after getting Adventure Time Love Letter, we're like, oh, it's really just Love Letter. We haven't really been so aggressive about getting the others. But Toby did find the premium edition finally, and that's something to think about.
So the premium edition is far bigger. It still has the standard game, but beyond that, it adds 32. It has 32 cards instead of just 16. It has tokens of affection, a jester token, and supposedly it came sleeved. Now, I personally don't know because I bought it secondhand, so I assumed it already was sleeved or
because the card size is weird.
Yeah, but the sleeves...
They included sleeves.
So the background is part of the sleeve.
It's the sleeve is the letter.
Okay. So it adds these nice tarot size cards. It has a lot of new characters from the Dowager Queen to um, the Jester, the Sycophant, and so many other characters.
Yeah, so it plays that it's that classic like you swap out roles for their equivalent
Mhm.
because the core game stays the same where you only need 16 cards to play Love Letter.
The princess remains the princess.
There's only one eight. There's no alternates.
Yeah, but there's now a 0, which is the Jester. Choose another player, give them the Jester token. If they win this round, you gain the affection token.
Oh, Atreides. It's the prediction.
And there's the assassin, also 0. If you have this card when another player chooses you as part of a guard's effect, they are knocked out.
Oh,
So it's a protection from guards.
turnabout.
So yeah.
Secret.
So it's an interesting thing. It adds new roles. It gives you new ways to play the game. But pretty much it's still the standard game. It doesn't go as far as some of the other versions of Love Letter. As mentioned, the Infinity Gauntlet version goes very different.
That sounds weird, but I'm curious. The Batman also was cute in terms of
Yeah,
theme.
but Batman was mostly reskin.
Yeah,
didn't really
it
add new
still
rules.
it still didn't. It just a weird rationalization that it's like Batman is romancing the Joker.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, because it's still called Love Letter. So
There's the
why?
Toho Bomb Letter, which has the base game but adds 3 new types of cards. There's the Princess card that can be replaced by the Instigator of the Incident or Boss cards.
What is that?
There's the player cards that are protagonists of the Toho project games, which have different abilities and can spend bomb tokens to do different things. And finally, rather than scoring basic points, players draw scores from a score deck and then they reveal their scores later at the end of the game to compare it. So it's all these little new nuances or rules to make the game more interesting. Um, the game has had a lot of awards. As early as 2012, it was already winning awards from Meeple's Choice nominees, Diana Jones Awards for Excellence in Gaming nominees. And it continues till the 2014 of getting awards with Origins at Spiel. So for a small game, it definitely has a very strong following.
Just 16 cards. 20 if you count the guide cards. And I think that's really like I think that blew our minds really when we first
Mhm.
got a copy. And like, oh my god, this gameplay with so few cards in a package that technically you can just bring this little pouch around and you can play Love Letter practically anywhere.
Mhm.
And then we're already people who we pushed the limit with playing Sushi Go on the go. We played Sushi Go in the airport.
Yes.
But Love Letter is even more portable than that. And given that you only really handle at most 2 cards at a time, it's super convenient. And then the rounds play so quickly, you might forget to keep score
Mhm.
because it's just a lot more fun to just play through.
Yes.
So, and that got us very curious about Seiji Kanai and looking at that. He's made mostly card games, based on what we looked at, and so hence things like Chronicle and Say Bye to the Villain entered our
Mhm.
game collection. And Chronicle was like clearly there were mechanics that were similar or like
Yes.
related to Love Letter, and it was nice to see them come together. But this one always stands out, and then it's always like one of those I don't mind revisiting, as whether as a gateway game for new gamers who are playing with for the first time, or just as a in between game, like a
Mhm.
palate cleanse, because it's still so quick to teach, very easy to play, and yet the mastery is just very difficult.
Mhm.
I guess we can spend some time trying to talk about strategy. Do you have Love Letter strategies?
Always take time to read your card. Even if you're familiar with the game, even if you've played the game so often, as long as you take longer to look at your card and read it, it's harder to figure out what card you're holding. Because given some cards have a longer description of their abilities and others are very short, if you look and you're done, it sort of can give things away, especially if you're a new player.
Hmm.
Um, know also when to make sure you always react. It's harder not to react and you'll give away more. But if you're always reacting no matter what you get, it's harder to
I
redeem.
mean, as much as it's a deductive game, it's also a big bluffing game,
Mhm.
and definitely because there's just so few cards to go on, then you just and there's a lot of room for like playing around with trying to drive impressions, trying to get people to think you have this card or that card.
Mhm.
When you discard the Countess, are you really trying to convince people you own the Prince or the King?
Mhm.
Or did they not notice that two people have discarded Princess this round and like so either you really have the king or you're just trying to pull the wool over other people's eyes. So things like that. I mean like that's part of the theatricality
Mhm.
of the game. And then just also just fully appreciating the powers. Things like the handmaid. I know the first few rounds we played it, we did not appreciate that the protection of the handmaid lasts all the way to your next turn.
Mhm.
So it prevents if in a four-player game, the three other people cannot target you
Yes.
for any card effects, which can be devastating at times, especially when they know like, ooh, they know like this person has the princess and this person has blah blah blah, and they stuck with the baron and they don't want to compare with the person with
Mhm.
the princess. So things like that. It's tricky. Um, don't be don't be afraid to keep a lower card to play a higher card power
Yes.
because admit and by design the higher value cards have the more interesting powers that can be used to great effect.
Yes.
um, in particular the prince and the king are very potentially deadly in terms of like just messing up hands and the like.
Mhm.
Just remember though that whenever you swap hands, just make sure that you're ready to junk that card quickly. And then don't underestimate the guard.
Yes.
There are five guards in the game, and as much as you cannot guess guard, um, there's still a lot of possibilities. I have knocked out many players with first round guard guesses, and I know it's pretty random. You have no idea what you're guessing at, but it's just a thing, and it's hilarious at the table when you do guess right on the first round because there's no discards yet. There's no clue as to what it might be. Um, and when you throw, are you the Baron? Ah! It's classic. It's absolutely classic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Mitch asks best number of players, given it's a 2 to 4 player game. 3 is your sweet spot. 4 works. It's not a problem at all, but it does feel like you're waiting for 3 people to finish. So that's so long that you're vulnerable.
Two-player is tight, and how they offset it is that you hide one card, you discard one publicly,
Mm.
so that everybody sees that card. So there's a bit more information.
But there's also a bit more hidden information.
It's a bit more hidden information, and there's a lot of like stupid turns because like handmade, okay, then the other person would just
Mm.
discard the card, and so it definitely takes away some of the fun. So 3 and 4 definitely work better. As much as 4 can feel a little longer, but in all honesty, compared to most games, it's not that long.
Mm.
But yes, 3 is probably your easiest. Um, um, Other things. People underestimate the priest, I feel. Because it's like a weird power. Like, I look at someone's hand, they're most likely going to discard it next turn.
Mm.
But that is more often than not how princesses are found.
Yes.
And once you find someone holding the princess, you know they can never discard that princess. So, rushing to get a guard or a prince in play so that you can take advantage is very important. Just watch out because typically the player with the princess will try to get handmaidens or barons to
Mhm.
take advantage of the princess being a heavy card.
So Mitch asks, is the big box worth it? We only got it secondhand. Admittedly, I feel we're lucky to have gotten it secondhand. But do I feel it's replaced the need for this? Not particularly. I mean, I'm happy to have found the premium edition for us. I'm happy we own a cup. But I don't feel like since we have this, we're never gonna pull this one out.
This
Um,
one's still so much more convenient. I mean, like from a travel perspective,
mhm,
we always joke like the next time we travel, like at the very least we can stick love letter in our bag, and
mhm.
then we always have a card game we can play with people on the go. You cannot say the same for the premium, which is by design. And then again, the core game experience of the base is is solid. The premium adds alternate cards, but it's like citadels where like how often do you play the alternates because there's still so much fun with the base rolls.
Mhm.
So same thing here. That's like our thought. So it's definitely one of those premium editions that it's always a nice to have but not essential to have.
Ways to have more fun with it is to tie it into shows that you like or movies. Um, if you've been enjoying, what was that name?
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton, for example, or Downton Abbey, then when you're playing this, feel free to ham it up. Feel free to pretend it's those kind of roles. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, you can actually find in places like Board Game Geek where people have made their own fan modifications of this card game.
Hmm.
They're just fan creations, so they're print and play. Your mileage may vary, but it's also still fun. Like if let's say you're having an event with some close friends and you're all practicing safe, you know, safe social distancing in that gathering, then maybe you can print out the copy of Love Letter that matches their interests in order to introduce them to the game. You know, you're always into this. Well, guess what? This board game is reskinned in this way, and you might want to try it, and it's that easy to get into.
I know we joked about like we had our own idea for a Doctor Who
Hmm.
love letter role sequence. I know there are already a number by now out there online or on Board Game Geek, but we had that concept, and I think River was our Countess and things
Yeah.
like that.
And then I know I also made a fan version of this for Houses of the Blooded
Oh yeah,
because that was one I really liked, and I was like, "Ooh, this so works." But yeah, that's Love Letter. Beyond that, the other tactics would be to not worry too much about losing. A
yeah.
large part of the game is the sudden upsets. It's the, I have a priest. This is a two value card, and then as the game goes on, they're all dying. Wait, I have a chance, and then the next card you get, princess. But you can't react because the moment you react, people will see, and it's just those moments that make this game so fun.
Yeah, and then and those like and you'll have players like throwing guards turn after turn guessing, and when they finally get it right, just as like it's the last guard, it's like oh my god,
Or
it's so
or those
satisfying.
moments where, let's say I start with the Baron, and then Rocky guards and asks, "Are you the Countess?" I'm like, "No." Then I draw a new card, and let's say it's the Handmaiden, so I throw the Baron away. Are you the Countess? No. And then my next card is the Countess. But now I have the Handmaiden out, and it's just those moments that build these stories that are just so fun to recall after a round when you start talking about, oh my god, at that time, ito nangyari.
As an aside, especially because the Z-Man edition is the most common edition,
Mhm.
there may be the tangential question of is the Tempest universe worth getting into? And
Mhm.
my short answer is just focus if you like the gameplay more than the story because the
Mhm.
story was a very loose thing tacked onto it for a while, and then I feel like they haven't really invested in the story since then because they themselves saw it wasn't super successful.
Mhm.
So I don't see a lot of love for Tempest. So
We
it's okay.
we are still hoping to find the other games in the Tempest universe. But
Particularly,
given
I still want Canales.
yeah, but given the rarity of the game, it didn't get as popular as hoped, so it didn't have as many reprints. So it's so much harder to find editions of it. We lucked out with a copy of Dominare, which many hate because you might play for hours only to find out the things you invested on are worth negative points. And that's a large part of why I like the game because it really forces you to pay attention to things.
Yeah, that started Toby on a weird path in his gaming life. This Dominar.
So yeah, hey, I know what you're talking about.
Hmm?
It's not my gaming boyfriend. So,
Wow, you said that on air. I didn't say it.
love letter. That's all the time we have for this episode. We had a lot of fun, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
Okay, so if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, or in particular like board games you hope we will feature on a Monday, then feel free to fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. Hopefully it's a game we own. There are a few games in the queue we do not own. Sorry, Mitch. Seven Wonders we don't own. Alhambra we don't own a physical copy. So things like that. But we'll try. We'll try for the games that we do
And
have.
we will slowly try to work on many of the other games we have. As you can see, the pile has been growing behind me. I don't know why.
It's strange. It's a
but yeah.
mystery.
And we're happy to see more and more options. We have been seeing some viewers who have been showing they've been purchasing some of our recommendations.
We're happy and we're guilty that we are getting people to buy more stuff. All right. So you can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG Sunico.
You could also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you thought about Love Letter. Have you played it? What's your favorite Love Letter moment? And what's your most satisfying guard guess in a game? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Have a good night,